Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is Bronx Lid's program where we talk to writers and reporters and editors and all different people who are putting things out in the Bronx so that you can find out what's kind of in their heads. What are they thinking about? Second segment today, we often do artists and photographers and filmmakers, and we have one of the world's great jazz musicians going to join us in our second segment. So hang around for that at least. But nonetheless, right now, I am real thrilled to have Reuven Blau, who's a reporter for The City. People may know him also previously from the Daily News, the Post, and the Chief Leader. He's also got a book coming out about our subject today. Nice to have you with us, Reuven.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk about the latest there.
The latest, let's see, the article that caught my eye, and really it's a topic we really need to talk about, is Rikers Island. And I guess we'll start with the headline: City jails scrap last remnants of pricey consultant plan as deaths mount. A fifth person this year died behind bars. And there you can see people who rallied at City Hall just a week or two ago. Um, I don't even know where to begin, Reuven. What is going on at Rikers? I guess your story really talked about the whole idea of oversight, and maybe the city finally needs to admit that that they can't take care of Rikers.
Yeah, it's really at a turning point right now. They've had oversight. They've had a federal monitor, basically in charge or kind of overseeing the department for about a little over 6 years. And the monitor essentially collects a lot of data, makes a lot of recommendations, and essentially issues these reports. A few a year, and it's just been this steady drumbeat of it's getting worse, it's getting worse, it's getting worse, it's getting even worse. And De Blasio came in office and said, "Hey, look, I didn't realize how bad this was. We're going to make this a focus, and we're going to actually, kind of
I,
address this
I
violence."
just have to interject there. I'm a New Yorker. I'm not the mayor of the city of New York. I didn't know how bad it was. Interesting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, no, no. I mean, I
I
think a
mean,
lot of
who
people. I mean,
doesn't know how
I
bad
think
it
that
is at
really
Rikers?
speaks to you're somebody who's who's well read and is also somebody who's like in the DNA of the city and saying that. And I think that is exactly it kind of really brings to focus what people are talking about when it comes to the shutdown plan, which is, hey, Rikers Island is this place by the East River. It's out of sight. It's out of mind. And a lot of people are not aware of of kind of the horrors, the daily horrors that go on there and the problems that they've been facing. I think that's part of a big reason, one of the big reasons why there's a plan to kind of bring this back into New York City, into like kind of the boroughs where they're closer to the jails and it's actually easier access. But that's kind of I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit of like
Yeah.
why
Well, so let me just ask you, do you believe we need a consultant or a federal takeover or something? Or do you believe in somehow, and of course, Mayor Adams has indicated he'd like to deal with this himself. Do we need that? Is that what the problem is? Because now we have consultants that are not working out either.
it's a really great question, and it's loaded in many ways.
It is loaded.
Uh, I will tell you this, I can't kind of give you a yes or no answer, but I will tell you this. I've been covering Rikers Island, in different capacities, or DOC, the City Department of Correction, for close to 20 years. I will say that there have been problems. It's getting worse. There's a lot more attention on it. And the city has come up with plan after plan after plan. Each new commissioner usually comes in and says, we're going to change things around. Most recently, there was a commissioner under de Blasio who had a 14-point plan, didn't work. Um, you know, there has been multiple attempts to sort of turn this around that have not worked. And I think that the advocates who are saying that there needs to be a receiver, a federally kind of court appointed receiver, which has been threatened now recently, they say, look, this is the only thing that can actually turn things around. And a receiver would have the ability to kind of change the rules that currently exist that kind of some have argued to handcuff reform and handcuff changes that need to be done. So, I mean, I can just tell you what the history has been, and it's been a lot of terrible things happening, and the costs have gone up, and in some stretches, the number of people there has gone down. I think it costs more to house somebody in Rikers Island than to send someone to an Ivy League school. It's not the
Which
answer.
is kind of remarkable. If you look at what I think people know about, especially in the Bronx, and we've had such controversy over where they're going to site the replacement jails, that one that is now geared for in the South Bronx. Um, I read an article, and I can't remember where I read it. I'm sorry, where they said, you know what, maybe this is a way to ultimately deal with it. Now, that's not an immediate solution, and when people are suffering, you certainly want immediate solutions. Do you think that the plan to break up Rikers Island is the right plan, even though it doesn't solve our problems right now?
I think it addresses a few major concerns that nothing else will do on Rikers Island. One is this phenomenon called bullpen therapy, which is essentially people now are woken up at 3, 4 in the morning to get to their court dates. They're dragged to court. They sit in a bullpen cell, sometimes usually for hours and hours, given a bologna sandwich or some type of other like tuna fish sandwich, and then dragged back, back to Rikers Island. It's costly, it's inefficient, and in some forms, like advocates will say, it's like somewhat torturous, and it actually kind of is used to persuade people to plead out their cases because it's just such a torturous sort of cycle.
And by the way, that makes it even worse. And we know the stories of people who claim to be innocent, and they're there for interminable amount of time. It's almost like a further insult to injury, so to speak, that this
Absolutely,
is the way they're
absolutely.
treated.
And the only way to address that is by building the jails closer to the courthouses. Now, in
Right.
many cases, and in Brooklyn and Queens, there's pre-existing places. Obviously, the Bronx is not that, and Staten Island has been excluded from the plan, largely because of political reasons. But one thing I will say is that there's been a lot of conversation, a lot of coverage about the community response to this and fears of the community. Historically, the fears that the community is raising have not been an issue. Downtown Denver built a gigantic jail there. Real estate prices not suffered. The neighborhood safety not been an issue
Oh,
at all.
that's it. That's fascinating. That's interesting to know.
And it's not the only place that this has been the issue.
But
Downtown
but
Brooklyn has been the same case,
just
right?
to
Real estate prices there are a fortune still.
just to defend, advocates in the Bronx, they've been through so much, and they've seen so much stuff dumped in their neighborhoods, from peaker plants that destroy our children's lungs and everything else. So even if what you say may be provable, I can understand why people in the Bronx are saying, "Oh yeah, instead of a school, instead of a health facility, we're getting a jail." I can understand that. But just back to Rikers, and one of the things that I noticed, there was a trip. Apparently, the mayor went to visit Rikers Island, and he did not visit with inmates. I thought that was unfortunate and somewhat instructive because, after all, yes, I understand. He comes from the blue suit and he had blue skin, but he's now the mayor of the whole city, and that includes people who are incarcerated in Rikers Island. And understanding where they're at, and maybe even tearing some heartstrings at them, probably wouldn't have been the worst thing. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, it's a touchy situation when you go down
Mhm.
there, especially because a lot
Have
of
you have you been there, by the way?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of times what people will do is, they see an opportunity to kind of plead their case, get some type of special, attention. And, it's a difficult place. And sometimes it's a distraction. It's difficult for staff to kind of deal with that. And then a lot of times, when there is conversations among, with the mayor or somebody that high up, it's kind of very staged. Like, they'll very specifically bring out people who they know won't necessarily, kind of rock the boat too much. And there's areas, frankly, that aren't very safe, even for someone on the outside to be walking around.
Right, and you certainly we would never, ever wanna put the mayor of the city of New York in any sort of, danger. Listen, we could break down any number of these issues. I mean, the solitary confinement, that was fascinating that the mayor came out, and not wanting to end it or adjust it. I mean, there are, the pictures of the solitary cells are pretty horrifying. Um, I do wanna mention that you are the co-author with, Graham Raymond of an upcoming book on the oral history of Rikers Island. Just talk to me about some of that stuff that is relevant to now. In other words, through that, can I assume we can see how we got to where we are?
Absolutely. It was a really fantastic project that I've been kind of part of and very proud of. Graham, who I've worked with at the Daily News, and I interviewed about 130 people, just everybody, officers, detainees, clinicians, former commissioners, you name it, people who've gone through the system and have shared their stories about different issues like, the food to, gangs to some of the history. And we got, some I've been covering this for a while and was just amazed by some of the stuff that people were telling me
Wow.
and, telling us, and just some incredible stories,
Mm.
about their experiences. And I'm just really, really kind of excited about kind of sharing that with the public. The book's coming out in January, so we're kind of still finishing up the editing process, but really, it was something we spent, a few years working on.
Congratulations. I mean, it's a story that needs to be told. I certainly hope the book does well. I'm kind of smirking here because we were gonna wrap up this segment, and I'm just so tempted to ask you as I guess, as foremost authority that we could find, what do you think? What should we do? I mean, are we going for, a federal receivership? Your story was about, let me just get the name, James Austin that was revising the system, a consulting group, McKinsey and Company. What do you think we need to do? And I don't know if I'm not pinning it on you, but I'm
Yeah.
curious.
I mean, how much time do we have? I'm kidding. There's a lot that needs to be done. I think, I'm a layman. I've not necessarily worked. I've covered it for quite some time. I haven't kind of been on the ground working. But I can tell you this. I can tell you that there are, serious, serious problems that need to be addressed. And it's not just saying, hey, we're going to change this. Like, here we have a plan. It's coming up with the right plan, the right execution, and sort of getting everybody on board. And it's a really tricky kind of road to follow.
Yeah. And
It's
one of the other things which we haven't talked about is the criminal justice system itself, which, there were questions about bail and bail reform. I mean, that's another half-hour show. So, it's, fascinating. I what can I tell you? I mean, the other thing that disturbs me is corrections officers. We don't want them to be endangered, and they're at much, I hate to put it this way, at war in there, mano a mano as anybody else, and that's absolutely not appropriate. And then they turn into, some kind of, that it affects them psychologically. It's just a mess. Anyway, so Reuven Blau from the city, we appreciate your time. We are certainly going to check back with you as things happen, and especially, I mean, I hate to wait till January, but when the book comes out, do we have a title yet? By the way?
just Rikers and oral history.
Rikers and all history. All
That's
right,
it.
listen, we're gonna check back with you. We certainly, appreciate your expertise and your experience in covering one of the most troubling places in the Bronx, frankly. So thank you so much. Say hello to all our friends at the city.
Will do. Thanks for having me.
Folks, we will take a short break, and we are really gonna switch gears, from, from what you just heard to, one of the great, jazz saxophonists and, clarinetists of all time, and he's gonna be performing in the Bronx, and that's why we're gonna have Victor Goines with us in just a moment. Don't go away.